welcome back to another edition of Office Hours. Hey, Paul.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. You were very patient as I had to rebuild my entire home studio right before we jumped on. So I'm feeling more put together. It's very messy out there where you can't see, but that's all right.
I was going to say, have you thawed out from being in Florida, but it's cold where you are too.
I was lucky enough that I landed midday, so it was like as warm as it was going to be here, and on the other side of a snowstorm. But it ended up being okay. And this morning it was 1 degrees, which isn't as bad as it can get, but it's pretty darn cold. And I
Too
know
cold
that,
for my blood.
yeah, it's crazy. But I'm not ungrateful because Doc and Caleb right now are in Florida at Liz Wilcox's studio, and it's like snowstorming there, and unlike here where we have snow boots and shovels and plows and everything else, that is not common in Florida because snow is
Yeah.
not common in Florida or Louisiana or any of these other places where it's happening. So shout out to our very cold friends who are not happy about the weather situation. Hope everyone stays
Yeah,
safe.
poor Doc, he gets chilly when it gets like 80, and now he's stuck in 31 or below. It's like, ugh. I
Yeah.
don't miss the snow.
Jeremy.
It's really nice to look at up on the mountain when it happens, but
Yeah.
it's like I don't have to deal with it.
So New Orleans had the biggest snowfall in 130 years. Holy cow. So shout out to our Mardi Gras friends who are not taking any shirts off this Mardi Gras season. It's warm weather. Well, I know I will just put this out there to everyone, since I'm sure that many of you have questions about the latest and greatest Ecamm Live beta that just got released yesterday. Lots of really cool stuff in there. I have been traveling, so I have not been able to play with a lot of these features yet. So Paul might be able to answer some questions about the beta, and I know Jeremy certainly can, and some of our friends who are hanging out in the chat, but I will not be able to yet. So I'm right there with you, testing everything out and pushing all the buttons. But if you want to grab that and you haven't yet, you can swing over. Paul just dropped that link in ecamm.com/beta. We'll get you that release. And we do sneak peek. We have a Q&A with Ken and Glenn coming up next week. So there'll be more opportunity to ask them some more questions about that and the full release as well. But this is everyone's time to be able to ask any questions. You can ask about podcasting and Podfest, where I was last week. You can ask about how the app works, tech, gear, workflows, chickens, snow, cats. We're here to help everyone out answer all of those amazing questions. What have you been working on lately, Paul, while we're waiting for some questions to come through? Any fun projects?
I'm redoing the thumbnails for the videos that I've done in the past, and I'm working on a new video to release, kind of talking about some behind the scene features that Ecamm has for moderating and stuff like that. So I've been working on that. I've got basically the script kind of laid out, what I'm going to say and all that stuff. Now I just have to start putting the pieces together.
Yeah, thumbnails are tricky. We've been talking a lot about thumbnails recently. I need to get myself a Doc was right T-shirt to just make him feel better about himself. Because I went out for dinner with a whole bunch of amazing Ecamm fam while I was in Orlando for Podfest, and we were all talking about YouTube thumbnails, and Doc was like sharing some pro tips and some of the learnings that he's put together over the last couple of years, what he teaches for his members and his group. And I was like, oh, right, Doc is really good at this, and I should stop just ignoring what he's saying and start diving into some better practices.
Yeah, I mean, his big thing is the thumbnails should get you to click on it, but the story should be told in the description. But
Yeah.
you don't want clickbait per se. And then we had a whole discussion one time about the whole concept of clickbait around thumbnails. And it's kind of depending upon the quality of what you're providing, whether the thumbnail really becomes clickbait. Some people do clickbait stuff, get you in there, and what they're talking about has nothing to do, or it's horrible or something like that. If your production quality and the information that you're sharing is good, then the thumbnail is not clickbait. The thumbnail is designed to get you to stop by and look at the video or
Yeah, it gives you the
get
content it
into the show.
promises. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Yeah.
It it gives you a tease, but it
Mhm.
doesn't tell you the story.
Yeah. Oh, we have a question coming in from Hank.
Oh,
I think I might be able to answer this one. Okay, so Hank is talking about the beta. So if you're using the regular version, then you do not yet have access to this feature, just so we're clear. And the feature is called Live Motion, which is this really cool way to kind of move and shift things in kind of a neat automatic transition kind of way. And oh,
I
Jeremy
think,
beat me to it. It works everywhere. It's not just for Ecamm
yeah,
for Zoom. It
and I
works with
think I can do.
all overlays, right? All kinds of different overlays.
I think I can do something that kind of gives you a little hint at it.
Oh
Do you
yeah,
have
let
a
me make
full screen of me?
you. Hang on, I'm gonna click new scene. It's
And
gonna
we'll
go
see if.
immediately to me. Oh no, to blank. Okay, that's even better. All right, so let's go over here to overlays. Oh, this is what happens when I
Sorry, I should
hold,
have.
hold, hold, hold. Switching over to Paul. Oh, making Paul full screen. I've lost all my Ecamm skills. Here we go.
So this is kind of this is a simplified version of it. But as I go to this next scene, you see how my picture shrunk down into the center.
Ooh,
I
that
normally there's
background.
boxes around me for four guests, but that's kind of what the move does. It kind of, instead of just being this transition flip in, it kind of it's kind of like what happens in Keynote, where you have magic move and stuff like that. That's the same kind of concept,
It's very
except we can't call it
professional.
magic move.
It's very professional. I love it. Uh, we got some great questions coming in here. Okay, another. I knew there was going to be a lot of beta talk today. Another beta question. I'm using the new beta, the beautiful beta. In the new audio settings, when I choose the YouTube app audio, I see no input level. When I switch to all system audio, I see the audio level. I can't answer this one. I haven't played with this enough. Paul, do you know the answer to this one?
That's interesting because as I click around through different applications, like in Google Chrome or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
I do see a a volume control knob. So the fact that you don't in your sound, and I'm assuming you're talking in your sound levels panel, that you're not seeing
Hmm.
an input level.
That might be
You
something to reach
might,
out to the support team to just double check.
yeah. I would reach out to them. I would also, if you can do a little video clip of what you're seeing and
Hmm.
post that into the Facebook group too,
The
so we
beta,
can
the
actually
beta
see what's
Facebook group.
yeah,
Yeah.
in the beta. Sorry, yeah, in the beta Facebook group,
Hmm.
um, we can see what's going on too, and maybe troubleshoot it.
Absolutely. No problem, Val. Always welcome. Later, otherwise, bacon is always the priority. This is a good question. I don't know if I know the answer to. It's gonna be one of these. Like here, we're gonna resize. All right. Is there a way to hide a scene? Can you hide a scene?
Not that
Let's
I mean,
see.
the only way to hide it is not to show it.
Is to just
Um,
I tend to drag them like below. All right, here I'm just gonna show you my. This is not at all a helpful answer to your to your question, but let's go into live demo mode. All right, so here are my scenes. There's like a million that Martin designed for office hours for us. So all these different awesome scenes, right? So I'm on the comment scene right now. I tend to put all of my scenes in like the order that I want to use them, but then at the end I have like backup scenes that I might want to use later. So like this one, for example, Paul Solo. See, it's completely broken because I messed with a whole bunch of stuff and didn't do anything. But it's there. It's hiding kind of at the end, right? And so if I wanted to use it, I could just pick it up and drag it to wherever I want it to go. But I split it up that way of like extra scenes. Come back up here to both
just
of
out of
us. Oh, comments.
curiosity, am I assigned to guest one?
You're not assigned to guest one.
Okay,
You're assigned to camera
yeah,
B. That's why it didn't show up.
there you go.
Um. So yeah. So I mean, yeah. Okay, you did the same thing. So you have it dragged out of order. It's a good question though. I'm happy to take that back to Ken and Glenn as a feature request because yeah, even just getting to like control click on it and saying like hide scene could like gray it out maybe that might be kind of a cool thing or hide. Yeah, this is another good suggestion. You could hide it in a separate folder.
Yeah, because I believe if you were to stick the scene into a folder and if you're like stepping through scenes, like
Hmm.
with the, next scene kind of thing, I think it would skip the folder.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to test that to make sure, but you might want to try that one. But
Yeah, that's a good question though. I never. There we go. No options. um, I never. I was talking with Paul about this right before we jumped on. So if you haven't seen it yet, Kat Mulvihill challenged me to make a non-techie Ecamm tutorial because she was marveled at how like basic I keep everything in my world. So, and it's just like how my mind thinks. Like even these scenes that Martin built out, which are incredible and like very detailed, my mind has a really hard time with them because there's tons of folders and lots of like things stuffed into other folders, and there it's locked on a variety of levels. So like the scene is locked, and then the folder is locked, and then the overlay is locked, and that's like not how I build things out in Ecamm or how my mind works. So for me, I keep it very, very simple. I don't use a Stream Deck. I don't like my muscle memory immediately is like I know exactly. I don't even have to glance down. My scenes folder is always top left. I know everything goes in order, so I can move very quickly through because I've created like a really simple hierarchy, and I don't use folders. I don't have a lot of graphics. I try to simplify all that down. I'm happy with like how that works for me, and then it does make it complicated when I try to switch over. Whereas if I put Martin or Anna and Fulgens in charge of this, and I sent them over like my very simple scenes, they would be like, oh, this is disorganized, because they're used to really structuring and building everything out exactly how it works for their brain. And both Ecamm worlds work perfectly. So you need to think about what's working well for you. So you could take advice from Anna and Fulgens, but maybe your brain is like mine. It doesn't think that way. And so you need to structure it for what works for you and how you want to run your show. So I know, no Stream Deck. How do I survive? I keep bringing it home wanting to use it because it looks so cool on the desk. And then it just sits there taking up one of my ports that I desperately need because I just end up like literally my muscle memory takes me back to just sliding across the mouse and clicking on it. And I use a laptop. So like every time I add a monitor, it takes me like a while to kind of reorient myself with that. So I just want everyone to know that like sometimes we show you really complicated structures and workflows, and that doesn't mean that that's the only way to do it. Nor does it mean that being really like keeping it really basic like I do is the only way to do it. You need to really think about what works best for how you think. How all of our brains work differently, right? So it's
and I'm of the other side where if I get a show and it's kind of all over the place, it's like my brain shorts out because I kind of like need things like when I set mine up with where my camera for my camera overlay, everything related to that my side of the picture is all in one folder.
Yep.
And then so I can turn things off. If I want to get rid of the lower third, I can click the lower third and it's all gone.
Yep.
Things like that. So I'm kind of like not swinging way over to the other side, but I'm kind of more in the towards the other direction. But it's like that's a neat thing with Ecamm is you can design it for the way you operate it. It's like just because something's right for me doesn't mean it's Katie should be doing the same thing. She does what works for her. All looks the same. It's just it's different. So
yeah.
Don't allow yourself to get shoved into a box.
Exactly. Even if it's an Ecamm box, don't get shoved into an Ecamm box.
Yeah.
Steve says that the new beta made him add a second monitor to help clean everything up. Again, a reminder: there are a lot of windows. You don't actually have to have them all open depending on what you're doing. So right now, I don't have network cameras open because I'm not using a network camera. I actually don't, I often don't have sound effects open because I rarely, if ever, use sound effects. Like they're just kind of playing in the background. I closed interview because I brought Paul on with Zoom. I actually hid the Zoom window. So that was the one. So you can have them all there for like some profiles and maybe not for others, or figure out what works best. Or use it as an excuse to buy more displays. Ken is a big believer in if it gives you permission to spend the money you want to spend, then go for it. But you don't necessarily have to.
That's like my downfall in my desktop setup. I have three 32-inch monitors around me, plus I have a teleprompter in front of me.
Yeah.
And it's like when I get in like I've been using my laptop more, and it's like it's a challenge for me to work on the laptop. I do have a separate portable monitor that I can attach to that, so I do get at least two monitors if I need it. But moving over to my laptop, it's a brain challenge because I have everything. I can see everything in front of me when I'm moderating or monitoring streams or doing stuff like that. It's like
Yep.
it's an adjustment, but it works.
Yeah.
You have to do with what you got.
Exactly. Jeremy points out a good thing. If you don't know if you can benefit from having a Stream Deck or not, you can download the app for free and just play around and see whether or not it works.
And it runs on the iPhone and it runs on an iPad. And the cool thing, if you use it on an iPad, you get you get far more buttons than you would get on a desktop Stream Deck. You can have 70, it's some crazy number of buttons. But I know a lot of people that do presentations and stuff like that, and they have an iPad in their hand and it has the Stream Deck stuff on it, and they walk around and they hit the buttons and change scenes and do all the stuff.
Absolutely. And Anna's right. At the very least, label your scenes. I do always do that, Anna. I label all of my scenes. It's one of them is unlabeled right now because that's my new Paul scene. Here, I'll come in and label this one Paul. Paul solo.
Yeah,
now we're up to
that
date.
is helpful when you go back to look for stuff, having your scenes labeled at least. I try to go in and name things logically because I've done that. I've built shows and all this stuff, and then I've had to go back and make a tweak, and it's like, then I'm like, okay, where's this? I'm clicking things on and off, trying to figure out where they are in my overlay panel and stuff like that. So yeah.
This is another great question. I'm loving all these amazing questions. So, will the interview hours go away now that Zoom is fully integrated into Ecamm? Yes. If you've been paying attention, the interview hours actually have not been counting down since we launched Ecamm for Zoom. So we have paused that, and I imagine in the next little bit that will just disappear. But yeah, we are not tracking that, and we actually haven't been for a bit now. So free interview hours on us for the last bit. If you are still one of the interview folks, I still use both depending on what I'm doing. Paul and I are testing out Zoom today. I switched a lot of my stuff over to Zoom, but part of that is because I'm using the Ecamm account, and we have the highest level account on Zoom, so the quality is actually better here on Zoom than on the interview link. But it would depend on what level of Ecamm plan you're coming in on, and your level of comfort with the guests. So there are certainly features that Ecamm for Zoom does not have. So like we can't have any of that back channel audio, which I actually really miss whenever we're in this environment. So we can't talk to each other over the countdown timer or the intro video or any of that kind of stuff. So yeah, there you go, Steve. Yeah, free interview hours for everyone.
Yeah, I've dropped a hint on the twins about the kind of the
back channel audio.
Back channel speaking. So hopefully they're looking at that. They said they'd look into it, so we might be getting that. No promises.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, great question. We were wondering if anyone had noticed. We were like, has anyone noticed that we haven't been charging you? We're not. No, Maury, I should say we are not retiring interview mode. That is a popular feature, and many people are not Zoom users, and they've become really confident in that space. You can also brand that space. That like there's a lot of things that interview mode does that Zoom doesn't do. So no desire to get rid of it. Oh, and a question about interview hours. So great question. When we first launched Ecamm's interview mode, we had capped the amount of hours that you could have. And these were hours that the interview mode tool was open and there was at least one person connected and coming through. I can't actually even remember off the top of my head what they were. I think it was something like 40 hours a month and some hundreds of hours a year. Yeah. And then you could buy more interview hours, buy more time, or it would renew when your monthly or your annual subscription renewed.
I think it was like 180 hours annually and 40 a month.
Yeah, something like that. But it didn't. So everyone's guessing. Who can find the information the fastest?
It's $250 a year.
Okay, $250 a year. But yeah, we haven't since we launched Ecamm for Zoom, and no one has been taking advantage of it. So yeah, so as Jeremy has noticed, he's got 250 hours that haven't gone down in quite a bit. So So it's still sitting there. You can see that when you have your interview mode open, but it is not ticking down. So a weight off of everyone's shoulders.
Yeah, one of the things that I still find people that use Ecamm, when they join a meeting from Zoom, if you see a Zoom link posted or sent to you, and you just click that link, it is going to actually open Zoom and start you're going to join the meeting through Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to join it through Ecamm, you have to go into the side panel in Ecamm, click on the word Zoom. It's going to open up the Zoom panel, and in there it says join meeting.
Mm-hmm.
When you click on that, it's going to open up a secondary window where you can paste the link in, or if you have just the meeting ID, you can put that in there. And then when you click that, that is going to then start Zoom up from within Ecamm and join you in. So you get all the feature functionality and integration of Zoom without having to be launching and running a separate application, which will impact the memory and stuff that your computer is using and what your computer is having to do, because Ecamm is already creating the videos and stuff to send out. Whereas if you actually use Zoom, Ecamm has generated its video, and now Zoom is also generating its video. So you're adding more processing power. So if you're tight on that, you have an older machine, you want to use Ecamm for Zoom and not come in through Zoom. But a lot of people continue to make that mistake.
Mm-hmm.
They don't realize how to get into a Zoom meeting through Ecamm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's amazing the what it can do. And again, the new beta that just was released yesterday, so on January 21st, that adds a bunch of like enhancements to the Ecamm for Zoom feature set. So there's a lot of really cool stuff that you can do now. Again, I cannot go into crazy detail because I just got back from Podfest and I haven't played with it, but it does do a lot more and improves the experience across the board. So worth testing out.
So M3 asked a question and says, what basic level of Zoom do I need to have a Zoom to get the 1080 quality? That is not, 1080 is only available to business accounts, and the Zoom quality is controlled by the person that is running the meeting, whoever is hosting the meeting. Yeah. So even though we can do 1080 and all that other stuff for higher resolutions, it's going to be based upon the resolution that your Zoom account can handle. So if you have a free account, it's going to be, the lower quality. If you have a paid account, you can boost it up to, I think it's 720 or something like that, but you have to have an actual business account, the more expensive type of account, in order to have the 1080. But in many cases, depending on how you're watching it, you can't necessarily tell some of them. You do see some stuff when you're starting to do graphics, but it's not that bad. Valerie and I do a stream, and we use a regular paid account, and it's not all that bad.
Yeah, I think sometimes we get a little focused on the details of that. Not to say that it's not important, but yeah, exactly. As Jeremy said, when you're windowed in, like when you're boxed in, like Paul and I are, it doesn't really make much of a difference. And Pro will get you that 720p. All right. Whoa, I'm having comment fun today. All right. Val asks, unless it's changed, some of the Zoom apps don't work inside the Ecamm to Zoom integration. Some of the filters don't work either unless that's been added lately. Yeah, that's a good one. You are right. I don't think that has changed yet.
If I remember correctly, I know they're looking into it, but it has something to do with the API, the back end thing that Zoom has. And so I know Ken and Glenn have reached out to Zoom to discuss this, but it's kind of a Zoom thing into their toolkit for interfacing with. It has to be sorted out. But yeah, they still don't work.
It's actually probably worthwhile. And of course I didn't grab a link for it. I can, you know what, here we'll go through here. So, while we're doing this, I will come in here and I will change this over. So this is our support articles. And if you want to read more and learn more about Ecamm, you can swing over to support.ecamm.com and you can search for absolutely anything that you need. But while I'm in here, I wanted to show you that coming up next week. Ta-da! All right. So if you were hanging out with us at Creator Camp last year, then you had the pleasure of spending some time with Phil. And Phil just published his new book, AI for Small Businesses. Ecamm is included in this, along with a ton of other just absolutely incredible tools. And Phil does a really great job of making all of this super approachable and easy. Anyway, we did send everyone that went to camp a copy of AI for Small Business. Except for a couple of our international friends that were trying to get that issue solved quickly. So if you have a copy of this book, or you want to learn more about this book, or you're planning on getting a copy of it, we're hosting a book launch party on January 28th at 2:30 p.m. Eastern. And if you go over to ecamm.tv/book launch, you can register. It's totally free. It's just letting people hang out with us and spend some time, ask some questions, pick Phil's brain about how he kind of put together some of these tools. He really has a great handle on all of it. So definitely worthwhile to take a look at and to ask any questions that you have. Let me drop the link in here, but it's just ecamm.tv/book launch. TV/book launch. But yeah, and this page was built in Zoom events, which we've been playing around a lot with. So our relationship with Zoom has been a lot of fun. We've been learning lots and lots of stuff.
Yes, Ecamm for Zoom is taught a lot of people a lot more about Zoom than they ever thought they were ever going to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Here, Jeremy's got an answer to that question. So Ken and Glenn need to wait for Zoom to update the Zoom client first with the feature and then open up the APIs to those new features. So yeah, there's, obviously when you're working with other businesses and, other teams, there's a different process than when Ken and Glenn are just playing around and adding things in on their own, right? So a little bit longer wait time to figure out some of that stuff. Awesome. What else can we chat about, Paul? Might be finished early today. Yeah. I don't see a lot of questions coming through.
Yes. In regards to the beta, if anybody's new and doesn't know how, the beta is a separate application on your computer. So you can be running the public version, the public released version, and you can also have the beta version, and you can flip through between the two with, normally not much issues. Like in this release, the only thing that's majorly different is the magic. Is it magic? I got to post the word on my screen because I get
motion live.
Magic
live motion.
Live. Thank you.
Live motion. Reverse.
Live motion.
We'll get there.
The live motion thing.
Yeah.
So if you're using the beta and you create a scene that has that transition in it, and you go back to the regular version of Ecamm, it's not going to know what that transition is, and so it's going to basically substitute whatever you have as your standard preference. The other thing too is your profiles move back and forth between them, so it doesn't care. So anything that you've built with the main version and you open up the new one, it's going to have it. What I would recommend, if you're going to play around with some of the new features or something, once you get into the new version, you may want to open, or even before, duplicate that profile and then call that, put beta at the end of it or something like that. And then you can go into the new session or the new beta version, play around, tweak around with transitions, all that kind of stuff. And then when you go back to the main version for your, to do your shows or whatnot, you haven't messed up with anything, but you can still play around and learn what the new features are. But they are two separate animals. You can't run them at the same time, but they exist on your computer at the same time, and they share the same files.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really great tip and worthwhile across the board. When you're testing and playing, having an extra backup, duplicate profile is a really good way to go about it. I have not done that in the past and have messed up a lot of my profiles as a result. These are some great questions coming through. All right, so it's okay. You don't have to last question. You promise. We're good. We're still in the time. If you're only using Zoom for interviews like Skype was back in the day, what type of account do you recommend? I would, if you're being serious about using it for interviews, I would definitely go at the pro level, because the free accounts of Zoom are also time locked, so you can't have anyone on for longer than 40 minutes. So unless you're doing like half an hour interviews, it doesn't create a great experience for bringing someone on if they're going to cut you off early. But other than that, the lowest paid level is going to work fine for bringing people on for interviews. You'll be able to connect fine. You'll have good video quality. It'll be it's a good starting point. And if you decide that you want to add in additional features or kind of level up from there, that's great. But I would say just whatever the non-free level is, next level up from that in Zoom is fine.
Yeah, I want to say it's like $13 a month or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's cheaper if you do an annual thing, but $13 a month isn't that way. If you try it for a few months and it's like you want to go back to the free, you can go back to the free, that
Yeah.
type of stuff. But it gives you a chance to like tinker around with it. But it's not that, it's actually not that bad. And then what I find is a lot of times, like if I'm working with somebody, just use, I'll use Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
I'll create a Zoom session rather than doing FaceTime or something else like that. And the neat thing with Zoom is almost everybody knows how to use Zoom.
Yep.
It's kind of with the pandemic, everybody got used to it. And,
Yeah, it's the Kleenex of meeting
accustomed to it.
tools.
Yep.
And it's got some great features built into it too. We've been really loving like all of the AI note-taking features as well. So, it might be a great way to get, show notes or a summary of your video interview, just because you're using that instead of a different tool. So, this is a great question. We were actually talking about this earlier today. So, what tools can I use with Ecamm to take live callers during my live stream? There are a few, nothing I've used, unfortunately. So I may have to follow back up with some additional resources on this, but there are some different ways to do it. You can definitely do it with a Rodecaster. So Rodecaster will let you take calls in. That's like the physical hardware device that you would need to have. But you were reading, Paul, an article because StreamYard had a workaround of how they were doing it, which I believe we probably could do in Ecamm if we tested it out.
Yeah, and I mean, some people actually use Zoom. They don't use the video portion of it, but they do. They have people come in through Zoom. They may not turn their camera on, but they can bring. They can have multiple people and control it, and so that is
Yeah, you
one
could
option.
use Zoom. Yeah, so everything that shows up in Ecamm is are what we call overlays. So they're layered on top of your scene. So you could certainly I could be here, for example, right? As we go back to solo for Paul, you can still hear me. So I could be a call-in person coming in through Zoom. Paul could be the main person talking. So, or that could be just a static image, or it could be anything else. So there are some options there, but there are some other additional tools. So I will take a look at that because I know Paul was looking at that earlier today as well. So there might be some other different options. It's becoming more and more popular these days as more people are kind of getting into this show space or podcast space where we're making our own radio and TV shows.
A lot of the other options, you either have to use your phone, which you're limited to one phone call at a time.
Mm-hmm.
You could use something like Google Voice,
Mm-hmm.
to give a phone number that they can call in, so you're not giving out your actual phone number. There's some other services that actually allow you to have more phone calls. All these things kind of come with a cost, but there are some options out there. And as Katie said, we're kind of looking at what we can do. Sorry for Maestro.
No,
His
Maestro is having
stream
fun.
appearance.
His stream
but,
appearance, yeah.
We're looking at some options and to have a better answer for how we can do this.
Yeah, call-in studio, Jeremy's suggesting. So there are definitely some options out there. I know for we use a website tool called Podpage for our podcast website. It's fantastic, but it has a built-in voicemail feature as well. So another option is maybe instead of live callers, you just have a regular voicemail box where people can leave voicemails, and then you just upload those audio files in which audio or video files in which Ecamm could certainly take and play during your show. So it just depends on what you're looking for. But great
Keisha
question.
said it's one call at a time, and with that, that's fine. You could use like a cell phone or something like that. But it's like if you want to stack callers so that when one person's done, you can rather quickly grab the other one without waiting for somebody else to call in, type of thing. That's when you're going to need something a little more advanced.
Absolutely. All right, I'm still scrolling through. I'm a little bit behind, but here we go. All right, so Jeremy is reminding everyone that if you're using the new beta, it did add the pan tilt zoom controls. So if you're using an OBSBot camera, which we're obviously big fans of, many of those are PTZ cameras, so you can now control that within Ecamm. Insta360 has some. PTZ Optics has some cameras. So if you're using any of these PTZ cameras, let us know how that's working in the beta and what, any weirdness that you see. We definitely want to hear back if it's working or if it's like not really working or if it's not at all working. We want to know about that. All right. Yeah. How was the trip? So yeah, for people who aren't following us closely, part of the team, so myself and Luis and Doc and Ken were all on site in Orlando last week. And we were at PodFest, which is an absolutely incredible event in the podcasting space. It was awesome. We learned a lot. We all got to celebrate and get excited with our friend Lou Mangello, who was inducted into the Podcast Hall of Fame. So that was really exciting. And we were able to help a lot of people get unstuck and start recording their podcast live from the event, which was really cool. Huge shout out to Laura Davidson and the whole team at Shure. They provided all of MV6s for all of our podcast nooks so people could record with great audio. And then the OBSBot team had cameras all ready for everyone. So it was a great experience to kind of see what people were doing. My favorite moment from the event was there was a 9-year-old girl who was interviewing, and she has a podcast. She has been podcasting for over 2 years, and she was way better than I will ever be at interviewing people. She was well-spoken, organized, thoughtful, and she was up and running with Ecamm in seconds. She did not need any help at all. So it was just a reminder that, like, if 9-year-olds can do it, we can all do it. She's living her dream and out there learning and growing and connecting with people. So really cool to see.
Cool.
Really, really neat. Great questions coming through. All right. Marianne asks, on my Mac, not including the Ecamm beta, how do I delete another Ecamm version if I've updated the Ecamm Live app?
It should, when you update it, it will update. It updates the existing version. It shouldn't be copying another version of it unless you've actually reinstalled it from like the web page or something like that. But there's all the files are held separately, so you could literally, if there's one that you don't want, because like I have an alpha version, I have a beta version, and I have the real version, and sometimes there may be another version that's out there. So I have all 4 of them on my machine at once, and they just kind of get updated. Like with the alphas, I'll just trash the old one.
Yeah, just drag it to your trash.
Put the new one on. So
Yep.
you just drag it to the garbage. You're not. It's all the core files are going to still stay there.
Yeah.
And you can always, as long as you don't dump the folder.
You can always check for updates within the version. So like if you're in the beta, check for updates in the beta. It'll update automatically within that download. And then if you're in the full version, same thing, so that you don't need, it'll just update the version that you have.
Yeah.
So you can always just hit that check for updates. And that is, just in case you don't know where that is, here we are in live demo mode. Come over to this Ecamm Live menu at the top. Same thing in the beta. It'll just say Ecamm Live Beta. And then you're going to swing down here to the check for updates. So that click that. You can do that on a regular basis. So just make sure that you are running the latest and greatest version.
Yeah.
But
like if you update it, like Katie's saying, it will update the program. It adds in the new stuff and all that stuff. But it's like even with the beta, if you've been using the beta for a long time and you have it on your machine, if you opened it up, because the release that we did yesterday, you're now going to get triggered to update the beta.
Yeah.
It's going to want to update itself. But
yeah, absolutely. These are some great questions, everyone. Thank you so much for these. Does Ecamm have how to use Zoom for group membership sessions? We don't have like a specific training like group for Ecamm for Zoom. There are a lot of how to use Ecamm for Zoom videos here on our YouTube channel. I know that Neil I think we have a full playlist of them. Neil did a number of them under the Ecamm Fundamentals series. So there are a lot of different videos, and we are working on building out a video library for Ecamm Fam that will kind of take people through the different trainings and workshops that we have that are on these topics. So more to come soon. If you do have specific questions or you want just one-on-one time, let us know. You can email marketing@ecamm.com. We're happy to jump on a call or answer any questions that you have. But yeah, something we're working through. Maury is brave, but never brave enough to allow a live caller near his live audience. Yeah, I'm a little afraid of the trolls too. I don't even have a very big audience for my personal stuff, but I'm always like, oh, I don't really want to let anyone in. It is brave being a call-in show. I hope everyone stays safe or has some good moderation. This is a question for you,
Be
Paul.
ready with the disconnect button.
Yeah, except the hang up button. What are your thoughts on new audio processing filters?
Yeah, it should see, like the Apple ones, some of those that you have installed on your computer. Any standard audio filter, you can, if you don't have it, you can load it in and all that stuff. But yeah, it will bring it in. In the stream yesterday, Ken and Glenn were playing around with some of them where they, were adding the cathedral effect and changing the pitch and all that stuff. And so instead of having to have a roadcaster do something on that, now if you have those audio filters, you can do that directly in Ecamm now, which is kind of cool. But yeah, they do work quite well.
Absolutely. the reigning champion of Ecamm contests is in the house. Yeah, George, you still owe me that photo of your like 5 rooms filled with Ecamm gear. I love to see your Ecamm merch display. I'm sure it's all in boxes at this point. It's like an overwhelming amount of stuff. I love it. I love it. These have been some great questions, everyone. It is interesting how, the app has just really become this like incredibly powerful production studio, and people are using it to every conceivable level on all different kinds of projects. I mean, even at this podcasting event, which again is like just a small portion of our overall audience is our podcasters or shows, but even what they're doing within the podcasting space is very varied across the board. So it's interesting, really cool what people are up to. All right, is there a way to test sound sharing for Zoom screen sharing, Stream Deck's Zoom screen sharing / Stream Deck sound? I'm running into the issue when using Ecamm sound isn't sharing.
So you have to make sure that you have like system audio turned on, because that's where a lot of your sound's going. Some of it's going to depend up on what your setup is. Are you using a Rodecaster Pro? Do you have stuff like that in it? But what I do is I'll set it up, I'll do some tests, I'll record it, I'll just do an Ecamm recording, or I will go live into a YouTube channel where it's unpublished or private or something like that. And then I can go over, I can do something, I can check it over there, those types of things, and test it out. Because a lot of times what you hear on your side, especially with Zoom, some of the new sound features and stuff like that, you may not hear it like in Katie and I's Zoom meeting that we have going, but you're only going to hear it in the live meeting session and stuff. And then a lot of times I will call a friend and have them come on and listen and test things and say, okay, I'm going to do this. Do you hear this? Or what are you hearing now? Those types of things. So you just kind of have to do some testing.
Yeah. It's not, it is hard sometimes to think through the best ways to test. So, so definitely worthwhile giving that a test. If you're a Zoom Events user, which I know is a larger level, so it's probably like if you're using it at a medium-sized to large-sized business, but they have this amazing like backstage feature that allows a lot of that testing. So worth checking if you have access to that, or if you are using a Zoom Events account, because that is also a great way to be able to test and practice some of these features. And yeah, we're keeping an eye on that, because maybe that's a cool thing that we could be able to add into Ecamm, is some of the backstage functionality, or being able to test a little bit better. Hello to Adam, who's hanging out with us. Adam,
Hey, Adam.
if you want to ask I clicked the wrong thing. If you wanted to ask a question, you could just drop it in. If you throw a Q : in front, we can find it easier, but we're slowly working our way through all these questions. It looks like Adam just hosted a live session using Ecamm for Zoom. Congrats.
Neat.
And then the viewer said that our audio was cutting in and out using an SM7 Plus via USB to your computer. Any tips for figuring out if the issue is the cable, Ecamm lag, or Zoom POV? You're probably going to have to try to reproduce it, is the only way to figure out exactly what's happening. So if you are able to put yourself back in a similar environment, so get a couple of friends to jump into your Zoom, connect it the exact same way that you had it connected during your session, and then try switching out the cable for a different cable. Try testing and pushing things in both Ecamm and Zoom. So separate it out. So remove Ecamm from the equation and just see how it sounds in Zoom. Remove Zoom from the equation and just see how it sounds in Ecamm. And also change out the cable, you're gonna have to kind of follow the audio through to figure out where those points
Yep.
are.
And remember, you can actually record the Zoom session. You know, you can
Hmm.
trigger that too. So you'll get a recording, and then you can use that to kind of gauge what's, what as I said, when I do those kinds of tests, I kind of state what I'm doing, what changes, how, what I'm using, any difference like that. So when I go back and listen to it, I know what I did along the way. I'm using an SM7 myself connected to USB.
Hmm.
Uh, through Ecamm, and it's working. It could be a cable. Um, Anytime I have issues with something, that's one of the first things I do. I replace the cable. It's the cheapest thing
It's
to
yeah.
replace, and probably 80% of the time the cable has fixed the problem. If the cable doesn't do it, then I start looking further. But my usual first troubleshooting thing when I'm having trouble with something like that is I replace the cable.
Hmm. Yeah, you just sort of have to go through a checklist of eliminating different things, right? So if you want to figure
Yeah,
out if it's the
just
cable, try the cable. If you want to figure out if it's Ecamm, see if it works in a different software. You can record a video in QuickTime, see if you hear audio there. Open up a Zoom meeting, see if you hear audio there. If you're not hearing the issue in those other software, but you are hearing it in Ecamm, then it's an Ecamm problem, and you need to reach out to our tech support
yep.
team.
The key thing there is when you're troubleshooting, only fix one thing at a time and
Mm,
then test it.
yeah.
Because if you try changing a whole bunch of stuff, you're never going to know what the real problem was because you've
Hmm.
changed five things and suddenly now it's working. And it's like, which one of those five things worked? And like I said, frequently it's the cable, and the cable was the cheap part, and you've replaced other parts and done other things, and it's like you spent money that you really didn't need, but you don't know what you did.
Yeah, I will say sometimes I've had things where like in the middle of setup I haven't noticed that like I bumped something, and so it may not even be that the cable is bad, but if the cable gets disconnected if the cable is disconnected from your microphone, the software is going to automatically just find the next microphone. So it might be that it's not even a bad cable, but you bumped something or it wasn't plugged in all the way. So it's just not pulling the microphone you think you're connected to. We've had that with both cameras and with microphones where it's just a matter of like, whoops, it's actually seeing my face cam or
And
it's actually seeing, my built-in MacBook microphone.
And we don't think about it a lot, but if you're trying to figure out on the microphones issue, if it's, if you've got the right microphone, if you do this, you're going to hear that tapping coming across the end. So if you're tapping on your microphone and you're not hearing the sound,
Yeah.
then you know you're on some other micro. It could be
Yep.
your MacBook. Usually something like that you can tell because you start getting more room sounds. But tapping on the mic source will tell you if you're using the right mic.
Yep.
Uh, and sometimes it's as simple as that. Oops, I'm using the wrong mic.
Yep. Absolutely. Great question from Ibrahim coming in. Any green screen animation site recommendations, and how can we apply in Ecamm? This is a great question. I don't have a physical green screen up behind me. In Ecamm, we don't have a virtual. We do not have any virtual green screens. So you physically have to have the color green or the color blue behind you to do this. But once you do, I mean, honestly, like sites like Adobe Express, Canva, any of these kinds of places will have a number of different elements and backgrounds that you can use. You want to look for either something that is like so crazy that it doesn't matter, or you want to just pay attention to like the sizing and perspective. So like if you get a photo or a video of an office background, for example, you want to make sure that like the size of you on camera looks appropriate to the background size, so it doesn't like look like you're a giant in a tiny office or a tiny speck in a giant office or whatever else. So and think about where those lines are and how all that works. But there's I mean, so many.
There's
Yeah.
lots of things out there. Yeah. The other thing that you want to be aware of is lighting, because if you're
Mm-hmm.
using a green screen and you have your camera light coming in here lighting your face, but
Mm-hmm.
your green screen image that you're using shows like a big window over on the other side, it's like this side of your, if the light's over here, this side of your face should be in shadow, and a lot of people make that mistake.
Yeah.
They have their lighting screwed up, and so like the shadows, and then it starts truly looking fake. I have seen some people do some green screen stuff that is incredible,
Mm-hmm.
and then I have seen people do green screen stuff that is like scary.
Yeah.
And then like one of the other things too about not doing in Ecamm what Zoom is doing is how many people do you see where things start bouncing around and it starts looking really creepy because somebody walks up behind them and suddenly pops into the screen, or a cat comes up, or it's just
Yeah.
it looks really fake and tacky.
Yeah. It's so true. Sorry, I was thinking about some of the like terrible instances of that. I guess I would question too, like, what is your reason for adding green screen in? And just make sure that it makes sense for, for what
Yep.
the output is. Cause it might be that you're adding it in because, because you just have a dirty office and you're like embarrassed about the stuff that's there. In that case, take the time to, to find a clean background behind you or move things out of the way. It's not that big a cone of cleanliness, we call it, but it's not that big of a cone that you can clean versus, so that's not benefiting you. But if you, for example, you wanted to be able to like show, a video behind you, or there was another different reason why you were leveraging that, or, maybe you were whiteboarding and you wanted the kind of the virtual whiteboard to be behind you in the scene that way. So just, think about your goals on it, because it's really easy to screw up and really easy for it to look super unprofessional. So it's just,
Yeah.
oh,
One of the things that I have learned.
you're meaning
Go ahead.
animation. So, so if forgive us for misunderstanding you. So I think that actually what you're looking for is more of like a stream elements or web widgets. So there are a lot of really cool. So Stream Elements is a really great one to look up. They have a lot of, so those are things that are like fun animations that will pop up if like you have a new subscriber, or you get like a super chat, or we have people who will time it in an automation to like something, a particular comment comes in and like a light goes off in the background in your studio. The Stream Elements is great for that. And again, there's a number of different web widgets out there that will add really cool kind of elements in. So those are the terms you're looking for, are widgets. Those are widgets.
Yeah. One of the things that I have learned over the years is when I'm going to do something in my, change something up, I ask my question, am I doing this for me, or am I doing this for my audience?
Yep.
And if it's for me, I generally don't do it, because anything you do, and you, as Doc has taught, as soon as you go live and you have one person on your stream, it's no longer your stream. It is your community, your audience's stream. And so everything that you do should be gauged for that audience. So if it's going to do something to help the audience or improve the content that you're providing, then yes, do it. If you're just doing it because it makes you feel good or something, then you need to stop and think about it. The other thing with those animations going in the background, the way it works is static images, it does not have to process pixels. It's a lot less that it's sending out. Anytime there's any kind of movement like this, it's having to recreate all those pixels, so it's adding more processing, it's adding more bandwidth and all that stuff. So having a massive animation background moving on, which looks cool, can also start increasing your bandwidth that it's taking to send all those pixels out to update everything that it's sending. Otherwise, it just has to say, okay, he moved, his eyes blinked. I just have to fix those little dots. Those are the only pixels I have to change. So you have to be aware of that type of stuff too.
Yeah, absolutely. Steve is asking if we've seen the new built-in green screen in Apple's camera controls. I've seen of it, but I have not yet tested it myself. I think there's some cool, AI and a lot of the updates that they're making in just even photography across the board has been really incredible. It's getting
better.
Like it's just worth making sure you understand what you're actually trying to bring it in to do, because it can do some cool stuff, but it can also look a little bit gimmicky. This is another great question. If you have a feature request, or if there's something that you really would love to get a better understanding of, or make sure you explain your use case to us so we can make updates to the app. Yeah, I have a pretty good memory, and I do grab a lot of these as they come up in live comments, especially if there's someone else on the stream with me, like Paul. But the best way is, as Jeremy posted here below, if you post it into the Ecamm beta group, which is facebook.com/groups/Ecamm Live Beta, that's the group, or on Discord, ecamm.tv/Discord. that will make sure that we like have a record of it. And Ken and Glenn also watch those spaces, so they're paying attention there. But in general, I'm pretty good. So 98% chance I'll pass that along. And if you're worried, definitely make sure it gets added in there. Bonus points if you can show what you're using it for. So, Ken and Glenn really love to be able to understand not only what the feature request is, but why. So, like, what is it solving? What weird workaround are you using right now that they could update
Why
or
do
fix?
you want that?
Why do you want it? Is it great? Is it great? Not to justify, like, not because we don't think it's a good feature, just so that they understand and implement it correctly. So it actually helps you with the need that you have. All right. We only have a couple minutes left here. Let's see if there's anything else we are missing.
Yeah, the thing to keep in mind, Ken and Glenn are not like live streamers. They don't stream constantly and do all kinds of stuff. So it's something that we may see that we like, and then, it may get mentioned to them. And so they're like, oh, XYZ, and it wasn't XYZ, it was ABC that it should have been implemented in. So, they gave you what you asked for, but it wasn't really what you wanted.
Or needed. Yeah, exactly. Oh my goodness. Well, we made it all the way to the end. I want to just make sure we scroll through and remind you again. Okay, so over here, again, book launch party if you want to come hang out and learn more about AI for small business. This is next week. And you can sign up for this for free. See the cool new Zoom events platform we've been using. It is ecamm.tv/book launch. A plug for our community. You can sign up for our newsletter. We've been sharing all kinds of pro tips, helpful content, events that we're going to, workshops, all of that stuff. You can sign up for our newsletter. This is ecamm.com/community. And then a reminder that we have an absolutely incredible affiliate program. So if you want to earn 30% commission off of every successful lead you drive, so every customer you convert over to Ecamm, you get a 30% commission. You can sign up at affiliates.ecamm.com. This is free, open to every existing Ecamm customer. So the only requisite is that you have to be an Ecamm customer. We want actual testimonials. Yep. But swing on over there. That is a great place to sign up. And then final reminder, huge thanks to our incredible friend Martin, who designed all of these graphics for us. Even though he used folders and overcomplicated it for my brain, it is really nice. And I think he did a great job of building all of these. So you can swing over. Let me just, I always get the link wrong here. So let me just grab this link while Paul is talking here. Widgets. Yeah,
the community page that I posted has a link to the newsletter, a lot of the different like the Facebook groups, the Discord groups, all the different areas that we're at, great places to sign up and know. If you want to know what our show calendar is, if you go ecamm.tv/reminders, it will give you a list of everything that's upcoming, out as far as we have got things planned. And you can also subscribe to that calendar and bring it in so that it's in your calendar and updated all the time so that you get reminders and those types of stuff. So
awesome. Well, we did it.
And if there's something that we're not doing that you'd like, let us know and we'll consider it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Paul, for hanging out. Thanks for everyone for being here for office hours. As usual, lots of fun stuff coming at you this year. You can always reach us, marketing@ecamm.com, and you can swing into our community if you have any additional questions or if you need any help or just want to practice and hang out. But we'll see you in the next stream. Bye, everyone.
Take care, everybody.
We'll talk soon.